A study from Stanford University once revealed something startling. When a person carries deep anger, their body reacts as if it's fighting a deadly infection. Blood pressure rises, the heart races, and the immune system weakens. Now think about that. Hurt doesn't just scar the soul, it begins to poison the body. But here's the mystery that science only partly explains. When someone wounds you, God doesn't leave the wound unanswered. The same way the body rushes to heal a cut, heaven rushes to respond to injustice. The question isn't whether God will act, the question is how. There are moments in life when you look at the world and wonder why the cruel seem to walk freely, why those who wounded your heart go on smiling, as if nothing ever happened, why betrayal, mockery, or injustice falls so heavily on you, while they seem to escape untouched. In those silent nights when you lie awake, replaying the words that broke your spirit or the actions that tore trust apart, it can almost feel like heaven is silent. It feels like no one is watching, no one is keeping record, no one is defending you. But that thought is only a shadow, not the truth. God's justice is never blind, and though His timing may not always align with the urgency of our pain, His justice operates with precision, with patience, and with perfect memory. Look at the laws that govern the universe. When you throw something into the air, it must fall. That is gravity. When you place your hand into fire, it must burn. That is cause and effect. These are not accidents. They are reflections of how God has ordered reality itself. Just as no object can defy gravity forever, no act of cruelty can escape the gravity of divine justice. It may float for a time, suspended in the pride of its own arrogance, but the pull of eternity always draws it back to account. That is why history records kingdoms that rose in violence but collapsed in shame, leaders who ruled with cruelty but ended with nothing, people who mocked truth yet were eventually silenced by it. Science gives us echoes of this truth. Researchers studying stress and guilt have discovered that those who consistently harm others experience long-term physiological consequences. Their cortisol levels spike, their bodies quietly erode under the weight of unconfessed wrongs, their sleep is disturbed, and their relationships crumble into cycles of distrust. They may post smiles on social media, they may drive expensive cars or wear masks of success, but inside their nervous system is a war zone. Guilt is not just a spiritual condition, it is written into the body. When someone wounds another human soul, God allows the echo of that wrong to vibrate inside their own biology until it cannot be silenced. And yet, what makes God's justice both mysterious and terrifying is that He does not rush it. We live in a world that craves instant results, instant karma, instant revenge. We want the person who lied about us to lose their reputation overnight. We want the one who betrayed us to face public shame the next morning. We want the cruel to be crushed by the very cruelty they released. But God is not driven by our impatience. He sees beyond the moment, beyond the season, beyond the years. His justice is not bound to human calendars. His patience is not weakness, it is part of His strategy. Because when He acts, there are no loopholes, no appeals, no cracks to escape through. His justice is thorough, not rushed. Think of it this way. If a doctor immediately cut open a patient without scanning, testing, or preparing, he could harm more than heal. But if he waits, studies the body, and then moves with precision, the surgery transforms into a cure rather than chaos. God's justice works with that same level of exactness. He waits until the moment when His action not only addresses the wrong, but teaches the lesson, not only corrects the offender, but protects the innocent, not only punishes the cruelty, but reveals His glory through it. When you feel like someone got away with hurting you, look closer. They did not. The wound you feel may have been sharp and visible, but their wound is slower, deeper, and hidden. While you cry out in prayer, they wake at night with restlessness that no medicine can ease. While you seek healing, they carry shame disguised as pride. While you walk forward through faith, they remain stuck in the cycle of their choices, trying to drown the echoes of their own conscience in distractions that never last. The longer they deny repentance, the heavier the weight becomes. God allows them to carry it until it crushes what pride built. Psychologists describe something called cognitive dissonance, the discomfort a person feels when their actions violate their own inner sense of right and wrong. The cruel might bury it, excuse it, rationalize it, but the mind keeps gnawing at itself. That unease corrodes peace. That guilt steals joy. That hidden fear of being exposed becomes a constant shadow. This is not random. It is the divine justice system built into the human soul, a reminder that every offense is seen, every injustice is recorded, and no wound is ignored. Think about the lives of people you've read about. Tyrants who built empires of fear, yet spent their last days paranoid and tormented. Betrayers who turned against friends, only to lose every friend they had. Even in personal stories, how often do you hear of someone who cheated, manipulated, or lied, only to later face public disgrace or private collapse? The pattern repeats because the author of life designed it that way. Justice delayed is not justice denied, is justice prepared. But here is where it becomes even more powerful. God's justice is not only about punishment for those who hurt you, it is also about protection for you. He allows their actions to reveal their true nature sooner than later, so that you do not tie your destiny to someone who was never meant to carry it. When someone betrays you, it may be God pulling back a curtain, saying, "See who they are before you invest more of your heart." When someone mocks you, it may be God reminding you that their opinion was never meant to define your worth. When someone tries to destroy your character, it may be God preparing to elevate you so high that their words cannot reach you. Justice is not always about watching them fall. Sometimes it is about watching you rise untouched by their arrows. God is a storyteller, and in his stories, villains play their part, but they never write the ending. They might injure, but they cannot cancel your calling. They might laugh, but they cannot silence truth. They might appear strong, but their strength is like a candle flickering in the wind compared to the eternal sun of God's justice. For a season, they might seem to prosper, but prosperity without righteousness is a trap, not a blessing. Scripture says that the wicked may flourish like grass, but they are cut down just as quickly. Do not envy those who hurt you and seem to thrive. Their thriving is temporary. Your healing is eternal. Do not measure their smiles against your tears, because their smile may be a mask, while your tears are watering the soil of your future strength. Do not think God has forgotten, because his silence is not absence, it is preparation. When he moves, he not only addresses the wound, he transforms the witness. People who saw you broken will later see you restored, and they will know it was God who carried you through. Justice is written into the fabric of creation. The same way seeds always reproduce after their kind, actions always reproduce their consequence. Those who plant cruelty cannot reap peace. Those who sow deceit cannot harvest joy. Those who build on lies cannot stand when truth shakes the ground. God's justice is not blind. It sees every seed planted, and time itself becomes the field that reveals the harvest. So when you feel like crying out, "Lord, do you see?" the answer is yes. When you wonder, will they ever pay for what they did? The answer is yes, though the payment may not look like you expect. Some will face public exposure. Some will wither inside under the torment of their own conscience. Some will lose what they clung to most. And some may, by God's mercy, turn and repent, because even in justice, his heart longs for redemption. The thought that can anchor your soul is this: God never leaves wounds unanswered. He never lets betrayal go unnoticed. He never allows cruelty to reign unchecked. He may allow time, he may allow space, he may even allow the offender chances to change, but his justice always arrives. And when it does, it is exact, it is complete, and it reminds every watching heart that heaven keeps record, that truth still stands, that righteousness still rules. So do not waste your strength plotting revenge. Do not poison your own soul by dreaming of their downfall. Lift your eyes higher. Trust the one who sees further than you do. His justice has never missed a single act, a single word, a single wound. He will balance the scales. And when he does, you will not only see the fall of what hurt you, you will see the rise of what was always meant for you. When people wound others, they rarely realize they are carving scars into their own souls at the same time. A cruel word might sound powerful in the moment, but that same word echoes in the chambers of their conscience long after the sound has faded. A betrayal might make them feel clever for a season, but the seed of betrayal begins to sprout inside their own heart, and it poisons their peace. This is what I call the soul's mirror effect. Whatever someone pours out onto others reflects back into their own being. They think they are breaking you, but they are cracking their own reflection. They think they are imprisoning you in pain, but they are quietly building a cage for themselves. Psychologists have long studied how people who inflict harm live with hidden torment. A person who constantly lies to protect their image lives in constant fear of being exposed. A person who manipulates others loses the ability to trust anyone because they assume everyone else is playing the same game. A person who wounds others emotionally often grows numb to their own emotions because to silence empathy for their victims, they must also silence empathy for themselves. Over time, this inner war begins to break them down from the inside out. The human soul was never designed to carry the weight of unrepented cruelty. It was created to thrive in truth, to grow in compassion, to reflect love. Anything outside of that design creates fractures. Think of it this way. If you stand before a mirror and smile, you see a smile. If you frown, you see a frown. The mirror only returns what you give it. Life has been designed in much the same way. Every action we release has a reflection. When someone sows kindness, they feel lighter, healthier, more connected to others. When someone sows cruelty, they create a distorted reflection that comes back in whispers of guilt, in broken trust, in restless nights. That reflection never lies. You can paint over it, you can try to distract yourself from it, you can chase pleasures to drown out, but the mirror remains faithful. The soul will always meet itself. This is why people who live in cycles of hurting others often look like they are winning on the outside while secretly withering inside. You may see them laughing at a party, while deep down they feel the weight of emptiness. You may see them flaunting success, while deep inside there is a gnawing sense of being unworthy of love. The soul keeps bringing back to them what they tried to give away. They intended to wound someone else, but in reality, they have trapped themselves in a cycle of hurt. Science echoes this mystery. Studies on guilt show that unresolved guilt activates the brain's stress circuits in the same way physical pain does. The body cannot always tell the difference between being injured and knowing you've injured someone else. That's why people who carry guilt often suffer from chronic fatigue, anxiety, or health issues that seem unexplainable. Their biology is mirroring the state of their soul. They thought their cruelty was something they could walk away from, but it walked away with them, stitched into their nervous system, carried in their heartbeat. And what makes this so powerful is that you don't always need to see the reflection happen with your own eyes to trust that it's there. Just as you know the law of gravity works even when you aren't staring at objects falling, you can be certain that the mirror effect is always in motion. People who wounded you will, sooner or later, face themselves. They can run across cities, they can change jobs, they can build new relationships, but they cannot outrun their own reflection. Every night when the noise fades, when the music stops, when the phone is silent, the mirror is waiting. And in the silence, it speaks louder than applause. This is why you should never let their actions define your future. If someone mocked you, betrayed you, or tried to destroy your spirit, do not waste your life trying to return the same. They are already living inside the punishment of their own choices. They are already walking with chains they cannot see. Your freedom is in releasing them to God, trusting that their reflection will return to them, and focusing your energy on becoming whole again. Because if you hold on to bitterness, the mirror begins to work on you as well. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It corrodes your peace, twists your perspective, and blinds you to the blessings still waiting for you. So the question is not whether those who hurt you will face consequences. They will. The question is whether you will let their actions trap you in their same cycle, or whether you will step out and choose healing instead. The mirror effect applies to you as well. If you respond to hurt with hatred, that reflection comes back. If you respond to hurt with faith, that reflection comes back too. The mirror does not play favorites, it simply reveals what is planted. Let me give you an example from everyday life. Think about someone who bullies others in school or at work. They might laugh when they see someone else cry. They might feel powerful in the moment. But over time, people stop trusting them. Friendships fade. Their circle becomes shallow because fear can never build true connection. Deep inside, they start to sense the loneliness of being unloved for who they really are. Their cruelty has come back as isolation. They thought they were building strength, but they were building walls. Their soul showed them its mirror. On the other hand, someone who is hurt but chooses to show kindness to others reflects something very different. Their soul becomes lighter. They may still carry scars, but those scars become badges of resilience rather than anchors of bitterness. The mirror gives back strength because they chose strength. The very pain that could have destroyed them becomes fuel for compassion. They understand others more deeply, they grow in wisdom, and they live with an authenticity that no pretender can counterfeit. The mirror is fair. This truth stretches across cultures, faiths, and centuries. Ancient wisdom, sacred texts, and modern psychology all echo the same theme. You reap what you sow. You become what you reflect. You cannot escape yourself. For those who wound others, that reality is inescapable. For those who have been wounded, that reality is also a promise that you do not need to chase revenge because life itself, under the hand of God, ensures that the mirror will speak. Think about how liberating this is. You no longer have to wonder if their betrayal will go unanswered. You no longer have to sit awake at night imagining scenarios of revenge. You no longer have to let your spirit be poisoned by the thought of their temporary laughter. Because you know a deeper law is at work. The soul is its own witness and its own judge. The mirror does not lie. And God, in His wisdom, has designed life so that no one can escape themselves. Some people spend years trying to bury what they did. They throw themselves into work, into entertainment, into addictions, into distractions. They may numb their conscience for a while, but the mirror has patience. It will wait. And when they least expect it, it will stand in front of them again, reminding them of what they chose to release into the world. And unless they repent and seek mercy, they will continue to live under the weight of that reflection. This is not meant to fill your heart with gloating, but with peace. Because knowing this truth allows you to let go. You can release them into God's hands, not because you excuse what they did, but because you trust that their soul has already become their witness. They cannot erase what they did to you. They cannot silence the voice of their own conscience. They cannot escape the laws written into the fabric of existence. And that certainty allows you to rise above the pain, to build a future not chained to their choices. Your healing becomes your victory. Their reflection becomes their lesson. And life moves forward under the eyes of a God who never turns away, who never ignores, who never forgets. That is the power of the soul's mirror effect. There are moments when life feels unfair, when the wound you carry feels heavier than your own strength, when rejection slices through your heart so sharply that it feels as though the ground beneath you has betrayed you too. In those moments, you are tempted to cry out, asking why God allowed it, why He did not intervene, why He did not shield you from the sting of betrayal, the ache of abandonment, or the knife of cruel words. And yet, if you look deeper, you begin to see a strange and holy pattern woven into your story, that sometimes the very hurt you prayed against was the protection you needed most. Think about Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers. If you pause the story at the moment they stripped him of his coat and pushed him into a pit, it looks like tragedy. It looks like betrayal. It looks like abandonment by both man and God. But if you press forward, you see that very pit was the doorway to the palace. The betrayal became the bridge to kingship. What looked like the end of his life was in fact the protection of his destiny. If Joseph had stayed with his brothers, their jealousy would have destroyed him. The pit looked like pain, but it was actually God's shield. This is what we often miss. Pain is not always punishment. Sometimes pain is preservation. Sometimes rejection is not a wound meant to kill you, but a wall built to protect you. That relationship that collapsed may have broken your heart, but maybe it also saved your soul. That friend who turned against you may have left you bleeding, but maybe they also removed a future betrayal that would have destroyed you completely. That job you lost may have crushed your confidence, but maybe it also removed you from a path that would have suffocated your purpose. Our human eyes see only the surface. We look at what we lost and we grieve. We see the door that slammed shut and we mourn. But what if that closed door was protecting you from a fire behind it? What if that loss was the shield of God moving in silence? What if the very thing you called a curse was actually the hand of heaven lifting you out of harm's way? Science speaks to this in subtle ways. Neuroscientists tell us that when the brain encounters loss or rejection, it processes it in the same regions as physical pain. This is why heartbreak feels like your chest is burning, why betrayal makes your stomach twist, why rejection feels like a knife in your back. But what researchers also found is that people who endure rejection often become more creative, more resilient, more innovative. The brain responds to loss by seeking new pathways. That's not an accident. That's design. It is as though God allowed the pain to redirect the energy of the brain, pushing you away from what was harmful and opening the possibility of what is new. Think about your own life. The moments when you thought you couldn't survive often became the very moments that shaped you. The breakup that left you shattered might have taught you how to value yourself. The betrayal that tore your trust might have taught you discernment. The rejection letter you thought was the death of your dream might have been the protection that guided you towards something greater. When you look back years later, you realize that what felt like destruction was really construction. God was building something in you that comfort never could have produced. This is why you cannot measure your story only by what you feel in the moment. Feelings will tell you that pain is proof of abandonment. Feelings will whisper that rejection is proof of worthlessness. Feelings will scream that betrayal is proof you are alone. But feelings are not facts. The deeper reality is that God's silence is not absence. His no is not cruelty. His removal is not rejection. Every shift, every tear, every heartbreak carries a hidden layer of protection. Let me share something many overlook. Sometimes God allows people to hurt you because He wants you to see who they really are. If He allowed their masks to remain, you would invest your future in them. You would build your dreams on sand. You would tie your destiny to someone who cannot carry it. So He lets the mask fall through betrayal, through cruelty, through rejection. It hurts, yes, but it also reveals. Better to be wounded by the truth than to be destroyed by the lie. This truth is written in psychology as well. Therapists often describe betrayal as painful clarity. It reveals what you were blind to. It forces you to step back and reassess. It makes you aware of patterns you ignored, red flags you silenced, and dangers you minimized. And while the wound feels like the end, the clarity becomes a form of protection. You may not see it today, but years later you look back and realize you were spared something much worse. Sometimes protection does not look gentle. Sometimes it looks like a storm tearing down the house you thought was safe. But hidden in the storm is the prevention of collapse that would have crushed you if you stayed. Sometimes protection looks like people leaving your side. But hidden in that departure is the freedom to walk into new spaces where your growth will not be hindered. Sometimes protection looks like unanswered prayers. But hidden in the silence is the mercy of God, keeping you from things that would have destroyed you if He had said yes. And here's something else. If you are in a season where someone has hurt you deeply, know this: God does not waste pain. If He allowed it, He will redeem it. If He permitted the wound, He will use it as training for your future. Protection is not always about keeping you safe from all pain. Sometimes it is about shaping you through pain into someone unshakable. Diamonds are not made without pressure. Gold is not purified without fire. Muscles are not strengthened without resistance. And faith is not deepened without trials. The hurt you carry may not feel like protection, but it may be the very thing building the armor you will need for what lies ahead. Consider how an eagle raises its young. When the time comes for the eaglet to leave the nest, the mother begins to remove the soft feathers and comfortable layers, exposing the sharp thorns beneath. The eaglet feels pain. It feels discomfort. It feels like the nest has turned hostile. But that pain is not cruelty, it is preparation. Without it, the eaglet would never spread its wings. Without it, the eaglet would never know it was born to fly. That is how God works in your life. He allows discomfort, betrayal, and rejection not because He has abandoned you, but because He is stirring you out of nests that cannot hold your destiny. So when you think of those who hurt you, shift your perspective. Do not see them only as enemies. See them as tools. They may have meant harm, but God can use their harm as protection. Their rejection may have pushed you closer to your purpose. Their cruelty may have opened your eyes. Their absence may have cleared the space for the right people to enter. They thought they were breaking you, but God was actually shielding you. And one day, when you stand stronger, wiser, more fulfilled, you will look back at the moments that broke you and realize they were sacred. You will thank God not only for the blessings you received, but for the pain you survived. You will thank Him not only for the doors He opened, but for the ones He slammed shut. You will thank Him not only for the people He brought, but also for the ones He removed. And you will finally see that His protection was written into every detail, even the ones that brought tears. Pain can disguise itself as punishment, but to the eyes of faith, it becomes protection. What felt like betrayal was direction. What felt like rejection was redirection. What felt like destruction was construction. The disguise falls away with time, and you see that God was never hurting you. He was shielding you in ways you could not yet understand. When someone hurts you, the first impulse in the human heart is to strike back. You want them to feel what you felt. You want them to taste the same bitterness they served to you. That urge runs deep, almost like fire in your veins. And yet, if you give yourself to that fire, it will not burn them alone, it will burn you as well. Retaliation feels like justice, but it secretly chains you to the very wound you long to escape. God knows this, which is why His way is not to fuel your rage, but to transform your pain. His hand is not interested in making you the mirror image of the one who hurt you. His hand is shaping you into something higher, something freer, something stronger than the pain itself. Science has proven what Scripture whispered long before. Holding on to anger and plotting revenge rewires the brain for stress. It floods the body with chemicals that damage the heart, weaken the immune system, and shorten your life. Neuroscientists can trace the pathways of resentment like scars etched across the nervous system. Each time you replay the wound and rehearse retaliation, you carve deeper grooves of pain in your brain. You think you are sharpening your sword, but you are actually cutting into your own flesh. That is why unforgiveness ages people. That is why bitterness makes the face hard and the heart heavy. The body cannot carry what the soul was never designed to hold. On the other hand, forgiveness, real forgiveness, not the shallow version that pretends nothing happened, creates new pathways in the brain. It reduces stress. It lowers blood pressure. It restores calm. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is medicine. It does not erase the wound, but it prevents the wound from becoming infected. It does not justify what they did, but it prevents what they did from destroying you twice. Forgiveness is not about them. Forgiveness is God's way of transforming you. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when pain collides with promise. It is that moment when life hands you betrayal, loss, or cruelty, and you are left with the weight of a question: what will become of this? The natural mind sees only ruin, but heaven whispers of an exchange. It is the mystery that runs like a thread through Scripture, through science, and through the hidden workings of the human heart. When people harm you, when they strip something away, when they wound you deeply, God does not leave you standing empty. He steps into the equation and begins a process far beyond human calculation. He takes what was meant for evil and bends it into a blessing, not just for you, but for others who will one day drink from the well of your survival. That is the divine exchange. Every scar tells a story, and every story can become a seed. You may not have chosen the suffering you endured, but once surrendered to God, is no longer just suffering. It becomes transformed into wisdom, resilience, strength, and depth that cannot be purchased in any other way. Psychologists studying post-traumatic growth have discovered that many people emerge from their darkest valleys with unexpected gifts, greater empathy, deeper relationships, a stronger sense of purpose, a richer appreciation for life. They did not escape the pain, but the pain became the soil in which these treasures grew. That is not just resilience. That is exchange. Something was taken, yet something greater was planted. Think of a diamond. It begins as carbon, buried and pressed under unrelenting pressure. To the naked eye, that carbon looks worthless, black, fragile. But in time, under weight and heat, it becomes something radiant. The same is true for the soul that suffers. What others thought would crush you is the very process God uses to reveal your hidden brilliance. They meant to bury you in darkness, but that burial became your transformation. That is how God deals with those who hurt you, not only by addressing their deeds, but by ensuring their cruelty becomes your crown. There is a strange beauty in the way the universe itself reflects this principle. In nature, wounds can lead to unexpected wonders. An oyster, when irritated and wounded by a grain of sand, does not grow bitter. It does not attack the sand. It coats it again and again with layers of beauty until a pearl is formed. What began as irritation became treasure. Trees struck by lightning do not die immediately. Some grow stronger rings and deeper roots. Forests ravaged by fire often give birth to new life, seeds that only crack open in the heat of flame. Even creation teaches that destruction can be the doorway to renewal. God weaves the same law into the fabric of human lives. When you were betrayed, you thought you had lost. Yet God was shaping a pearl inside your soul. When you were mocked, you thought your value diminished. Yet God was engraving strength into your spirit. When you were abandoned, you thought you stood alone. Yet God was teaching you to walk with Him in ways you never would have known. The pain was real. The injustice was real. But so was the exchange. What they took was temporary. What He gave was eternal. History offers endless portraits of this mystery. Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, could have been defined by bitterness. Yet years later, standing in power, he said the words that still echo through time: "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That is the heartbeat of divine exchange. The prison was real. The betrayal was sharp. The injustice was cruel. Yet it all became the very path that placed him in a position to save lives. The betrayal did not break him. It built him into the man who could carry destiny. This pattern repeats in countless lives. A woman left abandoned by her spouse discovers a deeper strength and raises children who carry compassion into the world. A man cheated in business finds himself pushed into a new path that awakens his true calling. A young soul bullied and ridiculed grows into an adult who becomes a voice for those silenced by fear. These are not accidents. These are divine exchanges. The very thing that was meant to shrink them became the fire that expanded them. Science, too, nods in awe at this truth. Researchers studying resilience have found that people who endure significant hardship often develop what they call adversarial growth. Their brains adapt. Their capacity for gratitude widens. Their ability to savor joy sharpens. They are not the same as before. They are stronger. This is not to glorify suffering, but to recognize that pain, once surrendered, can become a forge. And what emerges from the forge is not fragile, it is unbreakable. In the quiet chambers of the heart, this exchange feels like a paradox. You wanted restoration in the form of punishment for those who wronged you. You wanted them to feel what you felt. Yet God's justice is often revealed in another way, by lifting you so high that their cruelty becomes a stepping stone. Imagine the confusion in the eyes of those who tried to bury you when they see you thriving. Imagine the silence that falls on those who mocked you when they realize their mockery only sharpened your resolve. That is God's justice through transformation. That is the divine exchange, the reversal of what was meant for your downfall. The exchange is not instant. Just like seeds take time to sprout, so does healing. Just like diamonds take ages to form, so does growth. In those in-between seasons, when you are still aching, still confused, still waiting, it can feel like nothing is happening. Yet underground, in the unseen, roots are spreading. Strength is forming. Depth is growing. Faith is maturing. The silence of God is not absence. It is incubation. Some of the greatest gifts of life are born in that waiting. Patience that steadies you in storms. Compassion that allows you to connect with the broken. Wisdom that helps you see past appearances. These gifts are not learned in comfort. They are learned in struggle. And when they finally bloom, they outshine the pain that birthed them. The one who hurt you never intended to give you such gifts. Yet through God's mysterious exchange, they became an unwitting participant in your transformation. There is a sacred dignity in choosing to believe this. It means you refuse to see your pain as wasted. It means you refuse to let your enemies have the final word. It means you choose to believe that your story is still being written and the author is not finished yet. That choice empowers you. It gives meaning to your scars. It allows you to walk forward, not with bitterness, but with the quiet strength of someone who knows that every loss can become a lesson, every wound can become wisdom, and every ending can become a beginning. Think about the times in your life where you thought something was the end, but it was really a new chapter. The relationship that collapsed opened a door to a healthier one. The job that was taken from you forced you to discover your real calling. The rejection that stung became the redirection that saved you. Pain does not always spell defeat. Sometimes it spells destiny. That is the exchange working silently beneath the surface. Even psychology affirms this. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, wrote that those who find meaning in suffering are able to endure it and even transform through it. He observed that while cruelty stripped people of everything external, it could not steal the inner freedom to choose how they would respond. That freedom is the seed of exchange. No one can take from you the power to turn pain into purpose. That choice, aligned with God's strength, becomes the birthplace of miracles. When you look back years later, you often realize the depth of the exchange. You see that the very thing that was meant to destroy you became the reason you are who you are. You see that your wisdom, your courage, your voice, all of it grew out of the soil of struggle. And suddenly, you no longer wish for retaliation. You no longer crave revenge, because you realize that God has already written the greater story. The one who hurt you gave you pain, but God gave you transformation. That is the exchange worth more than vengeance. So when you find yourself wounded, when betrayal cuts deep, when cruelty feels unbearable, remember this: you are not standing in the ruins. You are standing in the workshop of the divine. Every tear is a seed. Every scar is a map. Every setback is a doorway. And what is being written through your pain is not a tragedy, it is a testimony. That is how God deals with those who hurt you. He takes their evil and bends it until it serves your good. He turns what they meant to break you into the very thing that builds you. He exchanges their curse for your crown. Think about this. If you choose retaliation, you become like them. If you choose transformation, you rise above them. Retaliation keeps you on their level, locked in the same game, drinking from the same poison well. Transformation lifts you into a realm they cannot touch. They cursed you, but you still grew. They betrayed you, but you still found peace. They wounded you, but you turned that wound into wisdom. That is the kind of victory that makes heaven applaud. That is the kind of victory no enemy can steal. The world tells you strength is about getting even. God tells you strength is about getting better. The world tells you to show them what you can do to their life. God tells you to show them what He can do in your life. The world says hold on to anger until they suffer. God says release it so you can heal. And when you choose His way, something extraordinary happens. The very thing meant to bury you becomes the soil where your new life grows. The very act that broke you becomes the lesson that builds you. The very scar you carry becomes the story that inspires someone else to keep going. Transformation is not easy. It requires courage to look at your pain and say, I will not let this define me. I will not let this shrink me. I will not let this turn me into what I hate. That courage is rare, but it is holy. And every time you choose it, you step into the mystery of how God turns ashes into beauty. People marvel not because you got revenge, but because you became radiant in spite of what was done to you. That radiance is the light of God shining through the cracks. Think about the times in your life when you wanted revenge so badly it kept you awake. Maybe you dreamed of humiliating the person who humiliated you. Maybe you wanted to expose the person who lied about you. Maybe you wanted the one who left you to come crawling back in regret. Those fantasies give you a temporary thrill, but deep down they never heal you. Even if those things happened exactly as you imagined, you would wake up the next day with the same emptiness. Because retaliation cannot restore. Only transformation can. Retaliation is about them. Transformation is about you. History is filled with examples. The people we remember as truly great were not those who clung to revenge, but those who chose a higher road. Martin Luther King Jr. faced hatred, violence, and betrayal, but he said that hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, yet when he walked out, he did not seek to destroy those who caged him. He sought to build a nation that could heal. Jesus himself, hanging on the cross, wounded beyond measure, prayed not for vengeance, but for forgiveness. These were not weak men. These were the strongest souls to walk the earth because they chose transformation over retaliation. And it is not just saints and leaders. Ordinary people do this every day. A mother forgives the one who abandoned her. A child forgives the parent who broke their trust. A man forgives the business partner who stole from him. They choose to let go, not because it was easy, but because they refuse to give their future over to bitterness. That choice changes everything. It frees their mind. It softens their heart. It rewrites their story. You may ask, why doesn't God simply punish the offender and spare me the struggle? Why does He ask me to forgive, to release, to transform? The answer is hidden in the design of your soul. Retaliation is too small for the greatness you were created for. If all your life is about striking back, then your enemies still control you. But if your life becomes about rising, about healing, about becoming more than what they did, then your enemies lose all power. Forgiveness is not for the faint of heart. It is for warriors who know that their destiny is too important to waste on revenge. Transformation does not erase justice. God still deals with those who harm, but His work in them is His business. His work in you is to turn you into a living testimony of resilience. Think about that for a moment. Your life can become evidence that no wound is too deep, no betrayal too sharp, no rejection too final. Your life can become proof that pain is not the end but the beginning of a new strength. That is transformation. When you walk this path, you will notice something strange. The anger that once consumed you begins to lose its grip. The bitterness that once poisoned you begins to fade. You wake up one day and realize you are no longer chained to the one who hurt you. You carry scars, yes, but they no longer bleed. They have become part of your story, but not the definition of your soul. And that freedom is worth more than any revenge you could ever plot. There's a quiet power in looking at the person who hurt you and realizing they no longer control your emotions. They may never apologize. They may never change. They may never admit what they did. But you changed. You grew. You healed. You found joy again. That is the victory that retaliation can never give. That is the victory of transformation. So if you're sitting with anger burning in your chest, if you are carrying a wound that feels fresh and raw, remember this. You do not have to let that fire consume you. You do not have to let that wound define you. You do not have to let that betrayal be the end of your story. You can rise. You can release. You can transform. And when you do, your life will shine with a strength so radiant that it silences every whisper of your enemies. God's way has always been higher than ours. His way is not about returning hurt for hurt, but about creating beauty out of brokenness. His way is not about keeping you trapped in cycles of pain, but about lifting you into freedom. His way is not about making you like them, but about making you like Him, whole, radiant, unshakable. And when you walk that way, you discover that the greatest revenge is not destruction. The greatest revenge is resurrection. There are moments in life when the weight of hurt feels unbearable. The betrayal, the lies, the cruelty, the injustice, they sit heavy on your chest as if they will never leave. And in those moments, the mind screams for answers, for some kind of justice that feels immediate. You want God to act now, to strike now, to bring balance to the scales now. But if your eyes stay only on what you see in this short span of life, you miss the bigger picture. God's dealing with those who hurt you is not confined to the seconds, the hours, or even the years that pass in this temporary world. His justice stretches into eternity, and when you begin to see through that lens, everything shifts. Think about it. Every wound that feels permanent right now is still tied to time. Time fades beauty, time heals skin, time erases faces from memory. But God's justice is not bound by time. He sees beyond it, beyond the decades, beyond the centuries, beyond the fragile stretch of years we call lifetime. He deals not only with what people did to you in the moment, but with what it means in the grand story of your soul. When you anchor your heart to eternity, you realize that their cruelty is not the end of you, nor is it the definition of you. It is a page, not the book. Psychologists often talk about perspective. The way the mind interprets events determines whether you collapse under them or rise above them. Soldiers returning from war, patients surviving life-threatening illnesses, children growing through broken homes, they all carry scars. Some see only the scar and live in bitterness. Others look beyond and realize the scar is a mark of survival, even of strength. The difference is perspective. Now multiply that by infinity. When your perspective stretches into eternity, pain loses its power. The betrayal is real, but it is no longer eternal. The injustice stings, but it is not ultimate. You discover a strange freedom in realizing that what was done against you cannot steal what God has prepared for you in forever. This perspective does not come easily. The human mind is wired to crave immediate justice. Our nervous system reacts to unfairness like it reacts to physical pain. Experiments have shown that the brain lights up with anger when people experience injustice, even if it is minor. We want balance. We want wrongs made right quickly. That is why retaliation feels so tempting. But God's scale of justice is not bound to the brain's demand for instant satisfaction. His justice is slower, deeper, and more complete. He is not just punishing wrong, He is setting the universe in order. He is not just making them answer for what they did, He is shaping you into who you are meant to become. Fear often whispers that those who hurt you will get away with it, that their lies will remain unchallenged, their cruelty will remain hidden, their betrayal will remain unrepaid. But eternity answers that fear with thunder. No one gets away. No secret stays buried. No injustice escapes the gaze of God. You may not see the unraveling in this life, but eternity guarantees it. The arrogance of the cruel is temporary. The triumph of the wicked is fragile. Scripture calls it grass that withers, a flower that fades, a shadow that passes. Eternity is the stage where the full truth is revealed. And here is where it becomes breathtaking. While God promises to deal with those who harm, He also invites you to rise above the need to obsess over their fate. When you grasp eternity, you realize you do not have to police every wrong. You do not have to demand every apology. You do not have to chase every ounce of revenge. You can release it, not because it doesn't matter, but because you know the Judge of eternity does not miss a single detail. That release is not weakness. It is power. It frees you to live, to grow, to thrive without carrying the chains of anger across every season of your life. Eternity does not just answer the question of justice. It transforms the way you see suffering itself. Pain is not just punishment. It can be preparation. The struggles you endure today shape your soul for a reality beyond this world. Neuroscience has shown that the brain changes through challenge. It grows stronger through resistance, sharper through difficulty. If that is true in the physical brain, how much more is it true in the soul? Every hurt you survive shapes you for a glory you cannot yet see. You may think you are just surviving another wound, another loss, another betrayal. But in eternity's light, you are being forged for something eternal. C.S. Lewis once wrote that our present sufferings are only the cover and title page of a story so much greater. We live clinging to this thin sliver of time as though it is everything, but eternity reminds us it is only the beginning. That heartbreak you thought would end you, it will not echo forever. That betrayal you thought would define you, it will not define eternity. The ones who mocked you will not laugh forever. The ones who abandoned you will not rule your story forever. Eternity holds a reversal so complete that even your deepest pain will look small against the canvas of forever joy. And this truth brings both comfort and conviction. Comfort because you can rest knowing no one escapes divine justice. Conviction because you must also examine your own heart. If eternity is real, then the way you respond to pain matters. You cannot allow yourself to become the same as those who hurt you, because eternity will reveal who you truly became. You may have been the victim, but eternity asks, did you let the wound turn you bitter, or did you let it turn you brighter? Did you become a mirror of cruelty or a vessel of grace? The eternal perspective is not only about what happens to them, but about what happens in you. There is a kind of courage that comes from living with this vision. You stop panicking when life feels unfair. You stop breaking under the weight of unanswered questions. You stop living obsessed with revenge. You begin to live lighter, freer, bolder, because you know your story stretches farther than their cruelty. Their betrayal is a line. Your destiny is a novel. Their wound is a storm. Your life is an ocean. Their laughter is an echo. Your hope is a song that never ends. When you hold eternity in your heart, you also stop underestimating yourself. You stop thinking your pain disqualified you. You realize it qualified you for strength others cannot see. You stop thinking your brokenness is permanent. You realize it is temporary training for a permanent glory. You stop thinking your enemies wrote the last word. You realize the author of eternity has not even finished the first chapter. That kind of perspective changes everything. And when you live like this, your very presence becomes unsettling to those who hurt you. They see you thriving when you should have been broken. They see you hopeful when you should have been bitter. They see you rising when they thought you would never stand again. That is not denial. That is eternity pulsing through your veins. It is a quiet declaration that says, you did not write my ending. You will not define my forever. My story belongs to a God who measures in eternity. So let this truth sink in. You may never see every wrong made right in this life. You may never hear the apology you deserve. You may never witness the downfall of those who tried to harm you. But you can rest in the unshakable reality that eternity holds what time cannot. Justice delayed is not justice denied. Healing postponed is not healing lost. Eternity keeps the receipts of every tear, every wound, every injustice, and none of it will go unanswered. Lift your eyes beyond the horizon of pain. Lift your heart beyond the cage of bitterness. Lift your soul beyond the limits of time. See your life through eternity, and you will understand how God deals with those who hurt you. He does not simply balance the scales for a moment. He sets the entire universe in order for eternity. And in that light, no pain is wasted, no betrayal is final, and no injustice is permanent. Eternity is the great revealer, and when it speaks, the story will finally make sense. There comes a moment when you realize that life is not just about what happens to you, but what is shaped in you through it all. The people who hurt you may have thought they had the power to write your ending, but they didn't know the author of your story. Every tear you cried was counted. Every wound you carried was seen. Every prayer you whispered in the dark was heard. And the one who holds eternity in his hands has already declared that hurt will not have the final word. If you hold on to anger, it will shrink you. If you surrender it, it will transform you. If you live with eyes fixed only on this world, you will drown in unfairness. If you lift your gaze to eternity, you will rise with hope that cannot be stolen. And the truth that shakes both heaven and earth is this: no act of cruelty is stronger than the plan of God. No betrayal is deeper than his healing. No enemy is greater than his justice. You may walk through fire, but the fire will not consume you. You may carry scars, but your scars will become the proof that you survived. You may be broken, but brokenness in God's hands becomes the birthplace of brilliance. The fear that your enemies will win is an illusion, because their laughter fades and their power crumbles, but the strength He gives you endures forever. So step forward with courage. Do not let bitterness poison your future. Do not let pain define your identity. Let the very wounds they gave you become the wisdom that carries you into a new season. Let your story become a testimony that silences every lie spoken against you. And when the world looks at you, let them see not a victim, but a victor. Not someone crushed by cruelty, but someone lifted by grace. Their chapter in your life is over. Your story with God is just beginning.